The NBA has changed so much as each era comes to a close and a new one starts. Since the beginning of the NBA, centers have altered the games to include deep-range shooting, while point guards have shifted from playmakers to the league's top scorers. Even today, the best forwards in the game are often the players winning rings and making a difference in the NBA. But one thing does not waver when focusing on it regardless of the era: talent. Talent wins games, and the greatest players of all time have the most talent. The most talented players in every era have incredible skill sets that make them invaluable to their teams, through raw basketball skills or through other factors, including size, athleticism, and basketball IQ. Specifically, some of the best players in NBA history have dominated the most critical categories relating to basketball, whether that is scoring, defense, rebounding, playmaking, or simply winning games. Of course, there will be debates as to which players are considered the most talented, but here are the 30 most talented NBA players in history. 30. Dwane Wade. Career statistics: 22.0 points per game, 4.7 rebounds per game, 5.4 assists per game, 1.5 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game. Dwane Wade worked his way to becoming an all-time great player and top 5 shooting guard of all time. Known as Flash. Early on in his career, Wade used his incredible physical gifts to slice and dice to the rim and finish over defenders. His speed and curling movements were impossible to stop, and he was a force to handle on the defensive end as well. Wade is the greatest shot-blocking guard of all time, and he stifled offensive players for most of his career. The 3-time NBA champion and future Hall of Fame guard was blessed with incredible speed, but he worked hard on adding a consistent mid-range jumper and tried his best to make threes more consistently. Of course, defense starts in the mind, and Wade had one of the smartest basketball brains ever. A mix of athleticism and slicing ability has placed Wade among the most talented players ever. 29. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Career statistics: 22.3 points per game, 9.5 rebounds per game, 4.6 assists per game, 1.1 steals per game, 1.3 blocks per game. Giannis Antetokounmpo is one of the most gifted NBA players of all time, but he had to work to realize his potential. He was lanky, tall, and supremely quick coming into the league, but he was very thin and wiry. Through hard work, Giannis has bulked up and become the most dominant physical force since Shaquille O'Neal. Remember, athletic gifts give a player the base to succeed, but hard work realizes that potential. The Greek freak is truly freakish in his movements, from the way he can get from one basket to another in a few dribbles, to his quick movements at 7 feet tall. Quite frankly, there has never been a player built like Giannis, and the Milwaukee Bucks star is also talented with his ability to rebound, pass, and defend as well. Overall, Giannis is already a top 30 most talented player ever, and he isn't done yet. 28. Kevin Garnett. Career statistics: 17.8 points per game, 10.0 rebounds per game, 3.7 assists per game, 1.3 steals per game, 1.4 blocks per game. Kevin, the big ticket. Garnett was mainly known to be a defensive enforcer, but he was far more than that. The slim power forward was not the biggest guy in the paint, but his length and pure determination made him a force on both ends of the court. Garnett developed an automatic mid-range jumper and competed harder than anyone else. KG did more than just score and defend because he was a supremely talented rebounder and passer at his size. Perhaps most importantly, he knew how to win games and make his impact felt. Garnett was exceptional at trash-talking and using his intensity to benefit his team, meaning he was an all-around superstar on the court. 27. Charles Barkley. Career statistics: 22.1 points per game, 11.7 rebounds per game, 3.9 assists per game, 1.5 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game. Charles Barkley should not have dominated the NBA in the 1990s and ended up as an all-time great player because he was a power forward who only stood 6'6". Nowadays, we have point guards taller than him, but Barkley achieved success through 2 avenues: talent and determination. We have yet to see a short power forward dominate the paint as Barkley did, and by most accounts, he played as if he was 7 feet tall. Blessed with a powerful lower body and explosiveness to grab rebounds, Charles was a force down low against any opposition. The 11-time All-Star achieved almost everything in the game besides an NBA title and did not need it to enter the Hall of Fame because he is easily a top 5 power forward of all time. 26. Kawhi Leonard. Career statistics: 19.2 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game, 2.9 assists per game, 1.7 steals per game, 0.6 blocks per game. Kawhi Leonard has to be one of the best two-way players of all time. The player started out as an irrelevant draft choice in the NBA and blossomed into one of the best players in San Antonio Spurs history. Take it from his former head coach, future Hall of Famer Greg Popovich, when asked about how Leonard has grown since his San Antonio days. "Are you kidding? He's probably going to be a Hall of Fame player. He wasn't a Hall of Fame player when he first got drafted, so I will say he's improved quite a bit. He's done a great job. He's worked his ass off." In other words, Leonard worked hard to get where he is, but he also made use of his tremendous talent. Standing 6'7" and weighing 225 pounds. With absolutely massive hands, Leonard had the physical tools to succeed, but also the talent to become a superstar offensive player with dominant defensive acumen. 25. John Stockton. Career statistics: 13.1 points per game, 2.7 rebounds per game, 10.5 assists per game, 2.2 steals per game, 0.2 blocks per game. John Stockton might not look like much besides being quite a tall man compared to the general public at 6'1", but he was a dominant point guard. Other than Magic Johnson, there hasn't been a point guard who creates shots easier for his teammates than Stockton. The NBA's all-time assist leader formed one of the best duos ever alongside Karl Malone in Utah. Stockton was talented because his basketball brain was beyond everyone else's when it came to racking up assists as consistently as possible. It wasn't always pretty, and the point guard took every advantage he could on the court, but he achieved great success on the court for the Utah Jazz, which is why the team never missed the playoffs with him at the helm. 24. Pete Maravich. Career statistics: 24.2 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, 5.4 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game, 0.3 blocks per game. Pete Maravich was one of the greatest talents to ever step foot on a basketball court. Pistol Pete was one of the pioneers of introducing elite ball handling skills to go along with playmaking and outside shooting, and achieved so much in his relatively short career. Prior to his tragic death, Maravich was supposed to be the premier superstar guard in the NBA. Maravich was an elite scorer, using his skill to get easy buckets at the rim and also having a sniper of a jumper. Standing 6'5", he also had a decent height for a shooting guard and was able to shoot over most defenders. Remember, Maravich once led the NBA in scoring in 1977 when he averaged 31.1 ppg on 43.3% from the field. In terms of talent, Maravich is one of the icons. 23. Kyrie Irving. Career statistics: 22.8 points per game, 3.8 rebounds per game, 5.7 assists per game, 1.3 steals per game, 0.4 blocks per game. Kyrie Irving is one of the most skilled players of all time, and in terms of offensive ability and ball handling, he would rank somewhere in the top 10 on any all-time list. Irving is tremendously skilled when it comes to shooting, creating his own shots, finishing at the rim, and using dribble moves to stun defenders. Unfortunately, basketball is more than that. Kyrie Irving is without a doubt a superstar offensive player, but he isn't the greatest playmaker, and his size means he will never be a dominant defender either. But Irving is as skilled as they come, which is why he once swished through a game winner in the NBA Finals in 2016. 22. Karl Malone. Career statistics: 25.0 points per game, 10.1 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game. Karl the Mailman. Malone achieved so much in his career that he belongs somewhere around 15th on the all-time list. When looking at Malone, it is clear to see why he was so dominant when a 6'9", 250 lb muscular-bound phenom stepped on the court. Karl had the physique of a Greek statue, and he utilized it to dominate the paint as a scorer and rebounder. Malone won everything in the NBA except an NBA championship, and that was because he played in the same era as Michael Jordan. The Utah Jazz legend was a force in the paint, but also an automatic mid-range shooter, as John Stockton made sure to feed him the ball consistently throughout his career. 21. James Harden. Career statistics: 24.8 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, 6.9 assists per game, 1.5 steals per game, 0.5 blocks per game. James Harden has always been a bundle of talent. He just needed to be in a position to express himself as he got that opportunity with the Houston Rockets. Harden started out his career as a bench player with the Oklahoma City Thunder, winning 6th Man of the Year and helping them reach the NBA Finals. Upon arriving in Houston, Harden became one of the greatest offensive players ever. The Beard became a 3-time scoring champion and also one of the best playmakers ever from the shooting guard position. Harden's ability to defeat a defender with his handles and explosiveness is truly iconic, and even as he has aged, the skill is there to see. Say what you will about James's mentality or dedication to staying in shape, the man is a legendary baller. 20. Julius Irving. Career statistics: 22.0 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game, 3.9 assists per game, 1.8 steals per game, 1.5 blocks per game. Julius Irving, Dr. J, was the star of the ABA and also one of the most influential figures in NBA history. Irving is every player's idol for the way he glided through the air, made highlight plays, and achieved so much success. It is hard to imagine the NBA being what it is today without the legendary Dr. J. Irving was more than just a phenomenal athlete with exceptional gliding ability, as he was a dominant basketball wing player as well. At 6'7" and 210 pounds, Irving knew he could crash the boards well, score from inside and from mid-range, and simply influence winning. What Dr. J did in the ABA was amazing, and he managed to transition that into a legendary NBA career as well thanks to his talent. 19. Dirk Nowitzki. Career statistics: 20.7 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists per game, 0.8 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game. Dirk Nowitzki might have had more going against him than going for him when considering he was a foreign player who stood 7 feet tall and was not much of a powerhouse or defensive player. But Dirk had things that other 7-footers didn't have: shooting, basketball IQ, and versatility. There has never been a 7-footer who shot the ball better than the German did over his career. Nowitzki was armed with a one-legged fadeaway jumper that terrorized defenses for years, and there hasn't been a more iconic member of the Dallas Mavericks franchise to date. Obviously, Luka Doncic is slowly building his resume, but Dirk was the first player to truly carry the Mavericks every season. With an NBA title and an MVP on his resume, Dirk Nowitzki is absolutely one of the most talented players ever who achieved everything in the game. 18. David Robinson. Career statistics: 21.1 points per game, 10.6 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game, 3.0 blocks per game. David Robinson's physical gifts were easily apparent, as he stood 7'1", weighed 235 pounds, and had one of the most impressive physiques in the history of sports. Known as the Admiral, Robinson was also a natural leader and a dominant two-way presence. As such, he is easily one of the 20 greatest players of all time in terms of talent. The big man was a defensive monster, winning a Defensive Player of the Year award, but was also a dominant scorer as he won a scoring title. An elite scorer, defender, and rebounder, Robinson carried the San Antonio Spurs until Tim Duncan arrived and the Twin Towers were born. It is very hard to name better two-way bigs with more talent than David Robinson. 17. Elgen Baylor. Career statistics: 27.4 points per game, 13.5 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game. Elgen Baylor is one of the all-time great Los Angeles Lakers stars, and by that account alone, he must have had some surreal talent. That he did. This because he was a force on a physical level by standing 6'5" and weighing 225 pounds, and had the knack for dominating the games inside and out. As a result, Baylor made 11 All-Star appearances in 14 seasons and made the Hall of Fame. Remember, Baylor was one of the most talented scorers ever because he ranks 3rd all-time in career PPG and had 3 straight seasons of averaging at least 34 PPG from 1961 through 1963. The dominant small forward knew where his bread was buttered and decided to be a scoring and rebounding machine for most of his career, hence why he is considered the 17th most talented player of all time. 16. Bill Russell. Career statistics: 15.1 points per game, 22.5 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game. Bill Russell was immensely talented, even without looking at his physical length and career accolades. His basketball brain was beyond most other players, and he realized his focus should be on defense, rebounding, and making outlet passes to guards in order to win as much as possible. An unselfish star and natural-born leader, Russell was hailed as the greatest winner in NBA history. With 11 NBA championships to his name, Russell's strategy worked. He simply knew how to dominate on defense, and despite only standing 6'9" as a center, he had long arms and a knack for jumping at the right time to block shots. Had blocked shots been recorded during his time, we might be looking at the greatest shot blocker ever. Regardless, the late and great Bill Russell retired as the player with the most championships ever won by a player. 15. Allen Iverson. Career statistics: 26.7 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, 6.2 assists per game, 2.2 steals per game, 0.2 blocks per game. Allen Iverson, in terms of pure skill, would rank among the top 5 players of all time. He was not supposed to be dominant considering he only stood 6'0" and weighed 165 pounds. But the answer overcame that and actually used his size to his advantage. Iverson was one of the quickest players with the ball, and henceforth, one of the game's premier scorers. Iverson did not have much help early on in his career, as he consistently guided the Philadelphia 76ers to the playoffs, and even guided them to the NBA Finals in 2001 as the league MVP. Iverson's ball handling, shot creation, and toughness when he drove to the rim made him one of the most talented and beloved players of all time. 14. Jerry West. Career statistics: 27.0 points per game, 5.8 rebounds per game, 6.7 assists per game, 2.6 steals per game, 0.7 blocks per game. Jerry West was an absolute baller because he was as skilled and dominant as they came. The legendary shooting guard had every skill in the book, whether it was shooting, passing, defense, rebounding, or clutch shot making. In fact, West was known as Mr. Clutch because he would always get the big baskets when they were needed. No wonder why the NBA's logo has Mr. West handling the ball on it. Jerry West achieved everything in the NBA game, including winning an NBA championship, a Finals MVP, an MVP award, and making 14 All-Star appearances in 14 years. A great playmaker as well, West averaged a career 6.7 APG, despite playing as a primary scoring option for most of his career. 13. Shaquille O'Neal. Career statistics: 23.7 points per game, 10.9 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists per game, 0.6 steals per game, 2.3 blocks per game. It is easy to dismiss Shaquille O'Neal's skill level and talent when you see how big he was on the NBA court. Quite frankly, Shaq was abnormally huge and dominated through raw power and force for most of his career. At 7'1" and 325 pounds, O'Neal knew how dominant he could be and completely dominated the paint. But Shaq was also supremely skilled and talented because he wasn't a slow-footed center who only had one post move. Rather, he was quick, agile, and could jump high to grab rebounds or block shots. When he was in position, he knew how to score from hook shots from both hands and also move the ball when double and triple teamed. No doubt, O'Neal is one of the most talented players of all time, even when taking into account his size. 12. Wilt Chamberlain. Career statistics: 30.1 points per game, 22.9 rebounds per game, 4.4 assists per game. Wilt Chamberlain, like Shaquille O'Neal, was as dominant as they come in terms of using length, size, and power to destroy defenses. But Chamberlain was not just a very tall player competing against smaller players. He had incredible athleticism and a basketball brain that transcended his era. Chamberlain led the NBA in scoring 7 times, rebounding 11 times, and even led the NBA in APG during the 1968 season. That type of dominance from the center position is unheard of, meaning he was as skilled as he was dominant as a powerhouse figure. With 13 All-Star appearances, 4 MVP awards, 10 All-NBA team appearances, and a Finals MVP award, Wilt Chamberlain is one of the most dominant and successful players ever. 11. Larry Bird. Career statistics: 24.3 points per game, 10.0 rebounds per game, 6.3 assists per game, 1.7 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game. Other than LeBron James, we have not seen a more dominant small forward than Larry Bird. The legendary Boston Celtics star was a triple-double threat every night and could even put up defensive statistics as well. Bird was not blessed with athleticism, as he played well below the rim over his career. But at 6'9" and 220 pounds, he has the size as a base to become a dominant star. Larry Bird was one of the greatest shooters ever, a tremendous rebounder, and a superstar playmaker. Judging by his defensive stats, Bird also had a high basketball IQ when it came to playing passing lanes, blocking shots, and impacting basketball games. As one of 3 players to ever win 3 MVP awards in a row, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, Bird has to be regarded as one of the most talented players ever. 10. Hakeem Olajuwon. Career statistics: 21.8 points per game, 11.1 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists per game, 1.7 steals per game, 3.1 blocks per game. Hakeem Olajuwon has to be one of the most naturally talented centers of all time, right behind Kareem AbdulJabbar. The superstar center had the greatest footwork in NBA history, to the point where it looked like he was dancing in the post. Olajuwon punished defenders countless times season after season with the Houston Rockets. The Nigerian national accomplished everything in the NBA on an individual and team level, and his talent took him to tremendous success. Hakeem, the Dream Olajuwon, was not only a dominant post scorer, but an elite defensive player who won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Born with exceptional footwork and an elite basketball IQ, Olajuwon had no weakness and should be hailed as an all-time great. 9. Steph Curry. Career statistics: 24.5 points per game, 4.7 rebounds per game, 6.5 assists per game, 1.6 steals per game, 0.2 blocks per game. A bundle of talent, Steph Curry would have been even scarier if he was born into a larger body. Curry stands 6'2", which is solid for a point guard, but he is of a slender physique and is limited in what he can do. Luckily, Curry does enough to be considered a top 10 talent of all time due to his shooting ability and ball handling skills. Curry is the greatest three-point shooter ever, and he has shattered every three-point record there is. The point guard has unlimited range, and while he worked on his game tremendously to become Mr. Golden State, he was born with a gift that nobody else has in terms of putting the ball into the basket from anywhere. 8. Tim Duncan. Career statistics: 19.0 points per game, 10.8 rebounds per game, 3.0 assists per game, 2.2 blocks per game. Tim Duncan is not known as a top 10 most talented player to casual fans, but he dominated the game in almost every way. He was not flashy, exciting, or explosive, but he had moments where his genius would be shown. Whether it was his shots off the backboard or his ability on defense, Duncan always dominated his matchup. The big fundamental won 5 NBA titles and deserved the 3 Finals MVP awards that he won. Duncan accomplished in the NBA on an individual level, but his value comes when looking at the success he had with the all-time great San Antonio Spurs dynasty. A dominant two-way player, Duncan is the greatest power forward ever because of his talent. 7. Kevin Durant. Career statistics: 27.3 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game, 1.1 blocks per game. Kevin Durant, in terms of raw skill and ability, is a top 10 player of all time. Can anybody name a player with Durant's height and build that can shoot from anywhere, break ankles with dribble moves, and defend with length? There isn't anybody that comes close. Durant took what George Gervin, 4-time scoring champion, did and turned it up to another level. If Durant was born with a killer instinct reminiscent of Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, we could be looking at the greatest individual talent ever. But Kevin is a nice guy at heart and was never interested in tearing his opponent's hearts out. He loves the game and just wants to play basketball, and that might have held him back. Regardless, Durant is a once-in-a-lifetime player and is the 7th greatest talent to have ever picked up a basketball. 6. Oscar Robertson. Career statistics: 25.7 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 9.5 assists per game, 1.1 steals per game, 0.1 blocks per game. Prime Russell Westbrook was a special player for his ability to average a triple-double over an entire season and dominate the point guard spot with athleticism, strength, and all-around ability. But Oscar Robertson was the original dominant point guard and easily a top 15 player of all time when it comes to pure ability. Oscar Robertson is another once-in-a-lifetime talent because, at 6'5" and 205 pounds, he was supremely gifted as an athlete with incredible explosiveness and speed. Robertson never rushed in his game, picked defenses apart with his passing, 6-time assist champion, and was also an elite scorer who averaged 25.7 PPG over his career. With 11 All-NBA team appearances to his name, the Big O was truly a special player. 5. Kareem AbdulJabbar. Career statistics: 24.6 points per game, 11.2 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game, 0.9 steals per game, 2.6 blocks per game. There isn't a center as talented as Kareem AbdulJabbar, and unless Victor Wembanyama can usurp him, there might never be. Kareem is the all-time leading scorer in NBA history and had the single most unstoppable move in NBA history in the skyhook. Over 20 years, AbdulJabbar had a ridiculous list of achievements. Kareem made 19 All-Star teams, won 2 scoring titles, and made 15 All-NBA appearances, while winning 6 NBA titles and 6 MVP awards. Perhaps no other player can compare to what Kareem did on the court on an individual and team level as a whole. Armed with the skyhook and elite defensive IQ, Kareem was born to play basketball, and his resume speaks for itself. 4. Magic Johnson. Career statistics: 19.5 points per game, 7.2 rebounds per game, 11.2 assists per game, 1.9 steals per game, 0.4 blocks per game. Magic Johnson was not born with elite shooting ability like Steph Curry, nor otherworldly athleticism like Oscar Robertson. But he was a born leader and the smartest player who ever lived when it came to setting his teammates up to be successful. The greatest point guard and leader of all time, Magic is just a special basketball player. If not for his retirement due to the HIV diagnosis in his prime, Magic's resume would have been even greater. But the legendary point guard won 5 NBA titles, 3 Finals MVPs, 3 MVPs, and made 12 All-Star teams in 13 years. Magic's ability to lead his teammates to victory was something he was born with and has to be the most talented and greatest point guard ever. 3. Kobe Bryant. Career statistics: 25.0 points per game, 5.2 rebounds per game, 4.7 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game, 0.5 blocks per game. Kobe Bryant is known for his killer instinct and dedication to the game of basketball, 2 major reasons why he achieved so much in the NBA. But make no mistake, Kobe is a very gifted athlete. In his younger days, Bryant was one of the most athletic guards of all time, as he could place any defender on a poster. At 6'6", Kobe had the perfect size for a shooting guard. But Kobe's game as a scorer and defender has to be honored because other than Michael Jordan, there hasn't been any guard as dominant as he was. The legendary Lakers' scoring ability was simply unique because he could go off to score points better than anyone else we have ever seen, a reason why he scored 81 points in a single game. 2. LeBron James. Career statistics: 27.2 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 7.3 assists per game, 1.6 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game. LeBron James is one of the most gifted athletes in the history of sports, even transcending basketball. At 6'9" and weighing 260 pounds, LeBron James is a locomotive that could have dominated any sport he put his mind to. Similar to a prime Jackson who played in the NFL, James's physique and athleticism transcend sports. Luckily, James took his gifts and turned them into an incredible career in the NBA. After all, the King is in his 22nd season and still going strong. He has already become the NBA's all-time leading scorer with 40,000 career points to his name, and already has a resume that is set in stone with 4 NBA titles, 4 Finals MVPs, and 4 MVP awards. But LeBron is the second most talented player ever because he has the greatest physical gifts ever and also the greatest basketball brain because his ability to read the court is surreal. How many times has LeBron left us stunned with his passing? Amazingly, despite being a pass-first player, James' talent is all-around greatness. 1. Michael Jordan. Career statistics: 30.1 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists per game, 2.3 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game. Anytime a player is the greatest in his sport, he has to be hailed as the most talented. In terms of putting the ball in the basket, Michael Jordan is the best ever, and this shouldn't be questioned. He can score at will around the paint, using his speed and vertical to finish his drives and flush it over his helpless defenders. As a clutch scorer, Jordan was also the very best. Beyond his scoring ability, Michael Jordan was simply the greatest basketball player ever. He dominated on defense, capturing Defensive Player of the Year while averaging 35.0 PPG in the same season. He went 6-0 in the finals, never playing in a Game 7, and captivated fans better than anyone else. Similar to Lionel Messi in the sport of soccer or Tom Brady in football, Michael is the king of his sport, and he will forever reign supreme as the most talented and gifted player in NBA history.